Hello and welcome. This is a video about some Windows PC applications that I've written. To be honest, I've been writing programs since 1972, and I've always been very interested in creating software tools. Some of the tools have been fun, and some have been used in anger to help me earn my living. Please take a minute to read the disclaimer. I've done my best to put together a correct and working application and documentation, but the best laid plans of mice and men gae oft agley. I am sure there are many inaccuracies and incorrect things somewhere in the application or the scripts or the documentation. So please read the disclaimer. This particular video is focusing on the use of PlodWare SQLite, how to download it, install it, how to customize the font size, and a brief introduction to some of the use of the GUI. All in all, it should be about less than 10 static slides followed up by some live demonstration. It should be around 35-40 minutes, I estimate. Relevant URLs are my website, which is dedicated to whoever takes my fancy. That's at ripetech.com. Underneath ripetech.com are various PlodWare PC applications. We're looking at the PlodWare SQLite application, which is the focus of this video. And if you need to, here is my contact email. The download link for this PlodWare SQLite is ripetech.com plodware-pc applications /SQLite.ole. There you'll find a page which gives you a snapshot or a screenshot of the GUI and a download link. And along the side you'll see subpages, which is a list of help or demos which are related to the SQLite Ole GUI. There is a bit of a niggle, a bit of a problem when installing. Although it's technically no installation necessary, Microsoft has put in a check that says if you try to run an executable that it doesn't know, it will say no, give you this Windows protected your PC blue pop-up. But you can still make it run the executable by going into the properties page, by double clicking on the executable, get the properties pop up, and then go to the general register and say unblock. We'll see all this in a few minutes in the live demonstration. This is the default appearance of the executable when it runs. At least it was the default appearance for the 20th of September 2021. Why default? Because you can do some customization, because some people find the font that I use is a bit small. So you can change the font size and the font type. We'll have a look at that later on too. There is some help information and quite a few demos built into the executable, which you can access via this menu page, Help. There are various fields where you can input information. This line here takes a single line of commands and then passes it either to the basic or SQLite interpreter. And this area is where you can develop a script and then execute it as a single script. You can also create a file of text and drag and drop the file onto this catch execute text green button. There is the ability to exchange information between the SQLite engine and a comma separated variables file, or even with an Excel application, such commands or such ability is written inside a command which is a mixture of PlodWare Basic and SQLite. But normally you would only create either SQLite commands or PW Basic, but you can, if you want, mix them into a single function. If you do a lot with SQL, then this GUI isn't ideal because you can't see very much. So there is this field here, which if you click on, will make the SQLite database easier to manage. It actually gives you this GUI, and this will let you see the data, see the tables, what schema you've got open, what columns are in a table. It's a bit of a visual browser around a database. Right, that's enough. Let's dive in and use the executable. Right, let's go online and get a copy of the executable. I've got a browser, www.ripetech.com. This is my general website, under which there are various pages. We're interested in the SQLite OLE GUI. And there is the download link. Let's click on it. There's my download. There's a zip. Open it. And let's extract the file, a single file, to the desktop. Right, we won't need the zip anymore. We won't need the browser. What I'm expecting now that we've got a copy is that we're going to get a blue screen when we try, a blue report when we try to install. Not install, to run. Let's double click on the executable as if we were going to run it. Yep. Windows protected your blue screen. Don't run. Now we right click on the executable icon, select properties, say unblock, apply, OK. That should be enough. When we click on it now, it should run. And there we are. There's the executable and the default startup page. Now, it might be a bit small to read. Some people prefer a larger font. If you want a larger font, then there is a shortcut. And under the shortcuts, you can create a new instance of the executable, but this time with a larger font. Click. Now we can compare the two. Much larger. We can close this one. We don't need it anymore. And there we have our executable. This is where I'd normally put single lines of text on this line. And this is where you can put multiple lines. If you need help, there is some help available by clicking on the help menu. And if you're going to use SQL, then to make it easier to browse through the SQL, there's a special GUI page called the DB info page. If I click here, that gives me this extra GUI page where I can actually browse through a database. Now, just for the hell of it, let's have a few demonstrations of some of the functionality that SQLite brings. Let's start by tidying up the default executable. This is the standard size. I'd like to use the larger font, so I use the shortcut. And new instance, large font. Okay, it's done it, but it's loaded it to one of my other screens, so I'll drag it across, and you can see it's quite a bit larger. We can delete this one, we no longer require it. We can tidy up by, let's always look at the output panel called the report panel. We'll clear it. And we'll clear this area where you can put a small script. And we'll clear this area. And we'll get rid of that command simply by putting in a blank command and enter. And there we are. We can also change the name given up here. I'll use a trick. That's actually the title command equals replace. Not typing very well today. Replace in title. Replace title. What are we going to do? Replace the following text. One, two, three, four, two, by nothing. Run the command. There we are. The title is now nice and tidy. We can get rid of this. We don't need to see it anymore. And there we are. That's going to be where we'll start with all of our different demos. Let's have a hello world demo. There's a number of ways that we can do this. Probably the simplest is to simply put in a command called message, and you give it a string expression, and we'll give it the string hello world. And then enter. And there we are, a little pop-up, message, hello world. Let's try copying this, pasting it in here, and breaking it down into two separate strings. Message, hello world. Hello world. Looks like there's two spaces in there. Yes, there is. There's a space after hello and a space before world. We'll take that one out and run it again. Yeah, hello world. That's why I like to do most of my work inside this area, so that I can easily modify it when I've made a mistake, or simply decided that what I've done, I want something similar but slightly changed. There's a thought. What we could do is, instead of sending a message, we can send hello world into the report area. And that is quite simply report equals hello and world. Let's send it and see what happens. There we are, hello world. Let's modify that hello world again. AGAIN, execute, and there we've got it again. And if we wanted to clear the screen, we can either manually click on clear, or we can use a command called report, but with no parameters. I'm going to use a trick now to execute that. I'm going to select it, and then right click with the mouse, double right click, sorry, and then say execute the current selection, and this should clear. Yep, there it goes. Or I could double right click there execute selection, and in that case, hello world again. Or if you want, you can have more lines. As I say, I like to do most of my work in the edit panel because it's nice to see what you're doing and play around and execute it. Let's execute all three. Clear the screen, give one line hello world, and then one line hello world again. Execute. Yep. Right. That's one way to do hello world. The following little demo is only about 12 or 13 lines, but it's quite nifty, it's quite clever. Under Help, Demos, General Demos, there is a text-to-speech demo. There we are. Anything starting with that character is a comment. So we've got 2 comment lines. I can't edit this field because it's read-only. What I could do is copy it all, cut and paste, or simply copy to edit, which will take everything in here and copy it into the edit panel. Now I can play around, give myself a bit more space on the screen, drag that down, got a bit more space, might be able to drag it a bit more, no more. Right, let's get rid of that. New script is a command that simply says we're going to have a whole new script, throw away everything you understood before, throw away variables and user-defined macros. Then a clever little thing, it's called a create object command. This is OLE automation. It's a Microsoft idea. I find it very helpful for me. Built into the PC I've got here, the Windows operating system, there are lots and lots of little programs, and there's one which has registered itself in the operating system as being SAPI, and it has a sub-program SP Voice. And we're going to say to the operating system through this create command, make a link to that application and start it. And it'll then return an identity for us. We can then manipulate that program through the identity. Basically, we're going to create a little loop for each my-L, whatever that might mean. It actually means, in this case, I've made it up myself, it's for each my language, for each language system that you can find in the SP Voice. Find out what voices it's got, and then for each voice let it speak the following text, and it'll say something like voice X, hello, are you surprised it works? At least that's the general idea. So I think there are 3 different voices on my system. 2 of them are vaguely English, and I think the third might even be German. Let's click it and see what happens.
Voice 1. Hello. Are you surprised it works?
Voice 2. Hello. Are you surprised it works?
Voice 3. Hello. Are you surprised it works?
Well, the question is, are you surprised it works? And it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 lines. Not bad. And now for a demo that's going to use screen objects. That's my terminology for how we create a GUI dynamically. We're also going to use Dynamic Link Library to gain access to a MIDI player and put it all together and create a little MIDI player that'll let us select an instrument and play a few notes. It's all built in, so go to Help. It's Screen Objects Demo, MIDI player. When I press Execute, all of this will be called. It's about 200 lines, and it will actually start by creating the GUI and actually playing a note. So will there be something happening almost immediately? Let's click Execute. There we are. Because of the way I've set up my screens here, it looks a little bit strange to me, though it may look okay to you, but I'll have to drag and drop the GUI screen that's been created to another display. Okay, now I can see the whole thing. This is where we can select one of the instruments. 128 instruments by default on most MIDI systems. We were using instrument number 2. I like to use an organ sound, instrument number 16. Bit loud, so we'll turn it down. When you click on one of the instruments, it automatically plays the note 60, and on a standard instrument, note 60 is meant to mean middle C. So we can, let's see. And around here, they tend to be, rather than standard instruments, they're percussion instruments. If, I'll put it back to 16, stop it. Change the pitch down, let's say, we'll go up 12 notes, which would be an octave, so up to 72. Come on now, 72. And we can change between a major chord and a minor chord. So click, default is major, click on minor, and we'll get the minor chord or the major. And if you want to create your own 3-note combination, not quite as flexible, but fairly flexible, you can select here the root note, and then as a second note you can say, based on the root note, play whatever note is so many semitones above it. So if we wanted to play a minor 7th, we'd have to play the root note 3 semitones and I think 10 semitones. That should be, I think, a minor 7th. If we were our 3rd, we can change that back to a major 7th and to a simple major or a simple minor. As I said, most of this code is GUI generation. As you can see, there's lots of GUI components here. And the actual handling of the MIDI interface is quite small. It's only a few lines. This is the basic function that actually sends a short MIDI message using the out short message interface, which takes 3 bytes, which basically says what note, what instrument, and how loud. That's the real, if you like, MIDI work. Everything else is GUI handling, arranging that when to generate these fields, responding to button clicks and whatever. It's a fun little video. I hope you enjoyed it. And the next demo is going to be about SQL. Under the Help menu, SQL Demos, there's a demo called Create Simple Table. There we are. It's going to tidy up, make sure that there's nothing in the system, create an empty database in memory, and then insert into that database a table called family and populate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. Let's simply run it. dbinfo is a command that automatically does that, brings us to this panel. Never mind, let's go back to the demo, click execute, and as I say, it'll take us straight onto the dbinfo. There we are, it's created for us a database. The default database is always called main, and inside main there is a single table. If I click on the table, I can see here what rows and columns, which columns it's got. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 columns. And here, when we click here, it automatically displays the rows from that table, starting from the top, that fit into the current display area. So there are only 5 rows. Our display area is big enough for 5 rows, so we see it all in one go. We can do standard SQL commands such as select, let's say, just the role and the age columns from the table family, and limit the result to, let's say, 3 rows. Let's go back to the script that created this, and let's copy that and create those 5 lines a second time. So I'm copying them, putting them into this area so I can see them all. Have a look at the dbinfo. It's got 5 rows, and we're now going to double up. We're going to have 10 rows. So I'll execute this. And when I click on here, it says there are 10 rows in total, and we can see them, only 5 on this current display page, but we can actually scroll through them here. Green here means that we're at the beginning of a display area. Red means we're at the end, and a funny blue mauve color means we're somewhere inside the range between, and we're actually here at offset 2 and 5 rows on a page. If I make the page bigger, then the system notices that and then redisplays to show us as much information as possible. Let's create a second table. Let's use this definition again. And this time we'll call it family 2 with exactly the same columns, just to see what happens when there's more than one table. Then enter. Have a look at the dbinfo, and now we've got 2 tables. One, the first one, with 10 rows, and the second one should be empty. It's got nothing in it. And we could populate it, and since we've got the same columns, we could populate it like that. That'll insert 1 row into the second table. Click, 1 row. There are here the ability to save this database. You can save it to a file, a database file, and there are some database options to do with whether you want, when you get this area being displayed. Some people like to compare it with an Excel file. We can, if we wanted to, export this straight to Excel, but one of the options says give the rows a number and give the columns an Excel style identity. Well, let's give the columns that. A, B, C, D, just like Excel. And we can also then add row numbers. Now we've got row numbers. There is no column title here because it isn't officially, well, it isn't a part of the database. It's something added on to the display. So there is no column here. Let's turn those back off. And just for the hell of it, let's go here. If you right click with the mouse on a column header, you get a display that shows you how many different values there are in the current query. In this case, we've got 5 different entries of type age, and the values are 4, of which there are 2 of them, or age 41, of which there are 2 of them. And you can sort this information. Let's do it by ascending. And now this area, the data is sorted on the basis of age ascending. It goes yellow here to show you that there is some form of filter going on. And you can come in here and click on the role and set that to be ascending. And now it's double sorted on both the role and the age. To remove them, just go back and remove them. Or you can, if you did have them still active, you could just click on any column and say clear filters for all columns. Nifty, I find this quite useful sometimes. But that's enough of the very first SQL demo. If you find that you're still in the dark, you can of course contact me via email. My mother language is English, but I've spent some 30 odd years in Germany, so if you want, gern auf Deutsch. That's it from now. That was PlodWare. Until the next video. Cheers.